Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Art Show. We really appreciate you tuning in. As you can see, today's a little bit different because of COVID, the restrictions that we have. We're pre-recording this conversation with my guest, Jean Plough, today. Thank you, Jean, for coming today. I'm excited to be talking to you about your work. Before we begin, I also want to just give a big shout out to all the people who not only logged in this evening, but to those people who made donations in support of the center. As you can imagine, these times are really tough for small nonprofits like ourselves, and we really appreciate your support. And so thank you very much. So Jean, thank you again for coming today from your studio location. And I'd like to just kick it off where I normally do, which is how did your life begin in the arts?
Well, Craig, I was trying to think back when you said that, and I think that when I was a kid, I thought I would be a musician. I used to like music a lot, but I didn't like practicing. I didn't like practicing, and I would not enjoy it. Whereas I loved, coloring and painting, anything like that. But people in my uh, some kids in my school used to always say, "Oh, Jean's is scribbling and she's coloring outside of the lines." And but I still enjoyed it. And then when I got in high school, it was more like I just liked the people that were also involved in art. I had a lot of in common with those people, and all my friends were either interested in art or music, and it just kind of worked out that way. I was kind of a rebellious teenager, and uh, I went to University of the Arts. It was PCA then, and I loved it there. I just
Mhm.
loved it to have a lot of people, just, creative people there. It was like so stimulating. But when I was little, I used to make things, like all kids do for the holidays. And I guess my father was very critical. He liked things more like coloring in the lines. He kind of had an
Showed him.
artistic streak in him too. He was an artist, basically, but that wasn't his job. But he liked to draw and stuff. My mother didn't, but my grandmother did. She did a lot of pictures of like watercolors of plants and flowers and everything. So it's like coming from a traditional kind of background. And but I enjoy seeing like more modern art and art that's freer, and that's what I like. But it's kind of difficult to make that transition. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I like all kinds of art.
What did you go to school for specifically?
I started going in illustration because I also loved, like, in magazines there were a lot of illustrations at that time that I liked, and I thought I would like to do that. I thought they were getting at some kind of feeling that I felt. But then when I got in illustration, even though I liked it, it was like there's always a project. Here's a problem, and you have to do this. And I would do it, but then I would really just want to do what I wanted. I didn't want to do the problem. And I realized the problem is just some kind of a base, and so that you have some kind of idea. But I just wanted to do something else. And so I don't know whether that was good or bad, but then I got into painting, and that seemed to be like what they were doing in painting.
Did you switch your majors or did you graduate as an illustrator?
Well, no, I had a dual major, I think, painting and illustration, even though I think my parents thought I'd be an illustrator. They're hoping I'm going to be an illustrator and
Mhm.
illustrate medical books. But that, and but so then I think maybe in the second or third year, the third year, I just went all to painting, and I really liked that. And what
So
was
I'm
what
sorry, go ahead.
it was interesting in painting, and like every time I go to a different teacher, the whole idea was different. So that was something that I liked. Some I liked better than others.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
So after you left school, after you graduated, uh, tell me about your artistic career after that? I mean, did you know that you were going to become an artist and stay an artist, or tell me that story?
I guess it was more just like survival at first, because I thought, well, what am I going to do? Because, the whole support, there was no support in those days, like after the University of the Arts. And so I thought, I don't know what I'll do. And I liked keeping, I had contact with some of the people that went there, but it was difficult because I had to survive. So I started teaching,
Hmm.
and I taught in Philadelphia for years, and I taught art. But it wasn't, to me, it wasn't exactly the same as what the way that I learned art
Hmm.
in University of the Arts. Although I could use that, and I really enjoyed a lot of it.
When you were teaching, did you maintain a studio yourself? Did you continue making your own work?
Let's see. Well, at first, when I first started teaching, um, actually, I started teaching with special ed,
Mm.
and then I realized that there was an opening for art, and I got into that. And I did have a studio. It was always in my home. I
Oh,
always had a studio in my home. I once had a studio in South Philly that was like attached to my home, and I think it's still there. And there's a painting on the outside of it. It's on Dickinson Street. It looks like two bodies on the outside of the house, up on the side.
I'll have to add that to my scavenger hunt of
That's
Philadelphia.
a good idea. I think it's still there. It's blue and orange. My friend Jeff made it, and he's an artist as well. He's in sculpture. Well, he painted it because his job then was painting houses.
Do you, is your studio still in your house?
Yeah, I got this house. Uh, I guess maybe about 7 years ago, and the reason I got it is because I could see it had a big, big room for painting, and there was water easily accessible near it.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Is it in Germantown or is it Mount Airy?
I it's over near the the co-op, but it's near Wissahickon Avenue.
Oh, okay.
It's Westview, Westview. I
Okay.
don't know if that rings a bell. Uh,
Do you ever invite people over to your studio for studio visits?
I've only had my friends over so far. I haven't done any of that like the open studio, but I guess I could. The thing about my house is people, it's, you can't know that it's here. And I feel like that's an advantage to it. And if I had to open studio, then everybody know it was there.
Okay.
I maybe I would do it. People interested in art. I did have some people come over to buy a painting once, and I'm trying to remember where they saw the work. But usually, it's just people that I know. Oh, I don't know. Eric Presidents. He came
Uh,
here.
Okay.
I hope I'm pronouncing it properly.
I believe you are. Well, I'm always encouraging people to uh, reach out to artists, work that they like, and ask questions and go to their studio. So it's nice to know that artists are available for people who are interested in their work. So that's
Yeah,
why I bring it up.
yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the work that you're actually doing. I see you have a beautiful piece behind you, and I was curious to know, did you talk me through the progression of your work? Have you always been working in this abstract style, or has it shifted over the years?
It's not always been abstract. It used to be like more hard edge, uh, large color fields that were representational.
Mm.
But then I started going into large squares that were more like Albers, but with a softer edge. And now what I'm doing on this one is I take paintings that I don't like, and gesso. I take my a friend of mine's husband came over. He was here and he suggested this. You take gesso and you mix it with water so that you can see through it, and
Mhm,
you put it all over the painting. And once that's on there, you just have to wait till it dries, and then you look at it and see what does it suggest to you.
mhm.
And it's really fun just working on that. And so I took all sometimes I don't always have palettes around, so I use old paintings for palettes. And then palettes dry.
I
And
assume these are all your paintings, not other.
oh no, of course, mine. These things and destroy them. And so I always thought they were very ugly, but my friend's husband liked them, and so we started doing this, and it's really fun. You should try it.
Mhm. Do you primarily work with paints, or have you explored other mediums that you find really interesting?
Well, I'm saving some stuff now that I want to work on, but maybe you have some suggestion for it. I have all this dryer lint that I've been saving for several years out of the dryer, and I take it and I put it in Ziploc bags, and they look really good. They look like they have a soft, kind of soft texture, and they sort of look like a landscape. And
So
so
are you talking that like these, would you consider these sculptures, or are they still flat 2D
I
pieces?
didn't really even consider them art. I mean, I sort of did. I didn't know what to do with them. I didn't think anybody will appreciate this, but I like them.
Mhm.
And they're in my studio now.
Do you
And then
draw as well?
draw. I used to, not now. The only time I draw is to plan out what I'm going to do next, um, or to draw shapes. I'm not drawing that much now. I do like the line quality, like a crayon line quality, and then like rubbing it, because you can see that here, like crayons, various places, not just paint. I like lines,
Mhm.
but I don't think maybe I should draw.
So would you say your approach is probably very like an automatic painting process? I mean,
Yeah,
how
it's
much of a
automatic.
pre-planning is it?
It's trying to be spontaneous, but that's hard. You have to really be spontaneous. You can't try to be spontaneous.
Mhm.
It doesn't seem like it works out. But then if it doesn't work out, it's okay, because then then you just take that, and that's like another palette, and then you
Mhm.
can just start over.
How
But
thick are these canvases getting?
they're pretty thick. You can see they have texture there, and I always thought that was ugly, but now I'm starting to like it. There's a lot of thick paint there. They might be heavy. And during COVID, I thought of this idea, but I haven't been brave enough to start it. Of like um, getting some color cloth, like a bright colored cloth that's really big, like 30 feet long, and going in the woods and hanging it up.
Mhm.
And I thought that would surprise people when they go in the woods,
Mhm.
but I didn't do it.
So it sounds like you're not just limiting yourself to just painting. It sounds like your mind thinks of a variety of different ways of expressing yourself.
Yeah, thanks of a lot. Yeah.
Would you ever explore something like poetry or photography or dance or anything else?
Yeah, I like poetry. I like reading other people's poems. I would try to write them, but I don't think that I'd be very good. I would enjoy it, but no, I don't think anybody would like it. Yeah, I love poetry. I like David White.
Mm.
Um, and I like music. Dance. I like to dance. I've just not been doing it, but recently it doesn't seem like there's time. It's a good always a good
Good
idea.
time for it. Yeah.
It'd be a good
So,
time now.
so tell me about your studio practice. Are you sort of regular in the studio, intermittent, when it strikes you?
It kind of changes, Craig, because it used to be I would be very disciplined, and I would make myself go in there and just sit there until I would do something.
Mhm.
And then lately I don't do that. It's more like out of inspiration, or really wanting to do it. And then my time limitation. I've been lately moving my paintings out of this. I have another room in my house that's all paintings that I have stored, and trying to move them into storage. And that's like, and cataloging them, every single one. And I've
Mhm.
never done that. And it is horrible to write, their name,
Mhm.
their size, and their media, and get a picture of them and put that on the computer and wrap it in plastic. And it seems like, oh, that would be simple, but it doesn't seem like it's
It's a
simple.
huge project. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a burden for a lot of artists.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? Yeah.
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 I'm curious to know, like, so if you used to be much more rigid in your time in the studio, it sounds like you're really sort of freed up, waiting for inspiration. Have you sensed any sort of change in your work when you've changed over that way? Has your work become more free and open, or is it the exact same?
I think it has become more free and open, but it's scary because every time I don't go in the studio and I don't sit there, then I'm always worried, well, will I ever do it again? Will I do it again? Or,
Uh-huh.
sometimes when you stop, then it's really hard to get back into it.
Yeah. Do you have when you're sitting in the studio, one of the questions I love talking with artists about is a lot of artists have rituals. Most artists will say, "Oh, I have to have the radio on. I might need a
Oh,
sandwich or a cup of tea or something like that." Can you work with other people in your studio? Do you need silence? What's it like in Jean Plough's studio?
I'm not usually working with other people. Once I had three other people here and we were all working at the same time. And that was fun, but it wasn't like what usually happens. And then
Mhm.
I went to another artist's house, um, and painted with him, and that was fun. But I'm always more self-conscious when other people are around, and I can't be spontaneous for some reason. Maybe if it happened constantly, it would be good. Um, I don't know. I guess when I was in school, I remember when I was in art school and my senior year, that was when everybody was demonstrating for Kent State. It was years ago and nobody showed up and I was there by myself working. So maybe don't know whether that.
So you've been making artwork for quite a while now.
Yes.
Can you tell me if there's a difference in terms of um, not only your approach but the outcome? What's the difference between when you made a picture when you were just out of school as opposed to now? Is there any kind of difference, or do you still get the same sort of feeling, or is it completely different now?
Yeah. I think I try to make a body of work now that's more similar. That's why I think these other ideas of the dryer lid and the hanging things are kind of good ideas, but I don't know if they're going to happen because I want everything to be more uniform. Because
Mm,
when I first came out of school, it was like I felt like I didn't really have a direction. I had a lot of different directions that I liked, and then I had to try for survival at that time. So I think it's different. And then over the years, it went through different kinds of styles to come out uh, to be able to do what I want now.
mhm.
To
Do
be
you
able,
do you work in like a series? Like, do you have ideas and you work through multiples, or is every picture you make a fresh start?
I think the series is more like the process, like this series with palettes and painting over. That's one series, and then another series is the square format, and another series is like putting putting a canvas on the floor, sort of like Jackson Pollock, and putting paint drops on it and seeing what happens. They're all kind of spontaneous, but I don't plan a series. It's just like it's happening, and then all certain paintings sort of fit into that series as hindsight. You know what I'm saying?
So the series would be more about pieces that explore a similar new technique. Would you push it that far?
Yeah, a similar. It might even be an old technique, but they are similar. Yeah, and then sometimes I see a painting from a long time ago that I liked, and I didn't know why I liked it. And then see, oh, because it's kind of foretelling this other technique that's coming up later.
Mm. So you mentioned the square a couple of times now. Is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
something that really fascinates you? Is most of your work square?
A lot of them have it may not be square, but it's like a field, a color
Okay.
field more in the center, or a main color field, and then other areas of color around it.
Yeah.
So it would be, yeah, I still do that, but I
I
like that because it.
I totally understand. I mean, there were years there I really enjoyed Van Gogh's last works. He did a double square, so
Oh,
it's a rectangular, and I've always was fascinated by that shape for a while. So I can understand your
Oh,
desire for
here's
that
a
spare.
question for you now, Craig, because I looked somewhere, read somewhere that you working on the same, copying the same painting for a long time, like years. And
Yeah.
well, what painting is that?
Oh, for me?
Yes.
Oh, I loved Cezanne's The Bathers, the one in the Barnes Foundation.
Is that the one where it's like this with the big one?
It's up high, so I'll show it to you. We can talk about that another time.
I like that too, but I thought, wow, you have a lot of persistence and
Yeah, well, it's just a little focus, but also all artists do have persistence. I think even, from the work that I know of yours, I think what intrigues me about it is it's really your color palette that I find interesting, because you tend to use very vibrant colors and a lot of color opposites that you sort of mix together. So you're not changing your tones or your values, but the saturation levels are sort of consistent, but you find new ways to use them over and over again in a fresh way. I don't even know if you're aware of that.
oh, that, I mean, that's all great to know. I should write it down.
Well, we happen to have it on video.
Good, good.
So tell me about other artists for yourself. Do you look at other artists' work?
Yeah, I have some books of artists' work. I have a book by Susan Rothenberg. I mean, my work doesn't look like hers, but I like it. I have books by Richard Diebenkorn, who I like, Helen Frankenthaler. Then I have a lot of books of my teachers, Warren Rohr, and I try to be inspired by those, but I don't want to make something that's exactly like what they made.
Do
Yeah,
you use them for, like, have you ever lifted anything like, oh, that's a great color combination, I'm going to use that? You ever do that?
I don't know if it's a color combination. It's more like an idea of how to approach a canvas. Color. I like a lot of their color combinations. Maybe with Susan Rothenberg, I would think of maybe doing something representational like a person or an animal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those color combinations, I might try to do something similar.
Well, I can see the Rothenberg, the way that you handle paint has a similar like a quality that you sort of let the paint be paint.
I like texture of paint, and I like Frida Kahlo, but in connection there with my work, but I still like Frida Kahlo.
Would it connect to your earlier work, your illustrative work?
Yeah, maybe. I like the idea of the self-portraits and that she made, although I don't make any. Just kind of like the feeling with it. I like Georgia O'Keeffe. I like a lot of traditional artists. Mark Rothko.
I love to ask these questions because it allows me to see a different part of your work. I can sort of see those references, whether you mean to put them in there or not. It always helps as an insight.
I like lots of artists. I can't think of all of them now. I'm just trying to think of the ones that I have the books of.
Is your house jammed full of art?
Well, I have one room that was jammed full of art, and now I'm trying to get it out to storage. And now I'm getting ready for another show. And so instead, I'm just putting the paintings for the new show in there where the other ones were. So, yeah, it's jammed there, and I don't like that. I feel like I like a lot of space, so
Yeah.
I don't like a clutter and the things jammed around.
So tell me about, I do find that when I ask this next question, artists tend to have a similar answer, which is really what's the hardest part of being an artist for you right now? And the reason I talk about similarities is it's usually not about the making of art. But what would be, you would say, the hardest part about being an artist?
Now it's like making myself get into the studio, although it hasn't always been that. Another thing is, one thing is stopping when something is finished, knowing when to stop.
Has that always been a challenge?
not for like hard edge kind of representational work. It wasn't for that, because then it would just look like, you know, sort of like perfect. But now, if you go too far and you have something that you sort of like, then you
Uh-huh.
go too far, you can just end up with a mess. And so, but if you don't stop at the right time, like with this painting, what I don't didn't think this was done, but I didn't want to work on it anymore.
Mhm.
So I left it for several months, and then a friend of mine liked it, and so I thought, well, I'll use this one, and it is representational of the more recent work, but
Mhm.
it's hard to go in the studio unless you have a habit of doing it regularly.
Mhm.
Um,
I've always loved what de Kooning said, where he felt his paintings were just
yeah,
abandoned.
I love him. That's another
Yeah,
one I love. He
yeah.
said, "What? What did
That
he
he
say?"
felt his paintings, he didn't finish his paintings, he just abandoned them.
Oh, I didn't know that. Well, that's interesting. I like that.
Just sort of give up, walk away. So, what's next for you? Are you currently working on some new stuff? Are you getting ready for, you just said you're getting ready for a show. Do you take a break for a little bit, or what's on your mind?
What's on my mind is, well, I wonder what'll be happening at the next show, which is in uh, I think June at Muse Gallery.
Oh,
And
okay.
I have all the work ready now. I don't have frames. I don't know if I'll frame it, but we have at the gallery. We've changed the inside of the gallery so that we have walls closer to the front, so people can just pass by and see it. And we put all the information in there. So I don't know what the situation will be like in June. It may have to be all up front like that.
Mhm.
But I have the work ready, and that's unusual because I usually have to look for work to go in something. So I feel good now that I've been able to produce work over this last year and a half, because I didn't feel good about my last show. It
Mhm.
seemed too stilted. So
So you've been with Muse Gallery for a while now?
yeah, I like Muse Gallery. I like Old City.
Mhm.
Um,
And you are online.
yes, I'm online. I didn't give you the website, but it's just my name, jeanplough.com.
.com. Well, actually, I think we had a link to your Instagram account.
Yeah, I use Instagram a lot. I really like that.
Are
Yeah.
you finding success with it? I mean, do people talk about your work, or do people reach out at all?
What I like is that I have like some immediate kind of way to show the work after it's done. If I make something and I put it on Instagram and I think that it looks good, then I'm happy and I feel like, well, I made something and then I did something with it. And then it's surprising what looks good on Instagram and what doesn't. And I have a few regular people that are following me, and I have some that I like, and it's very inspiring. Even though it's like a little tiny picture, it's
Mhm.
inspiring to look at Instagram and see what some people that I used to know are doing, and
Mhm.
some people that I like. That's very inspiring. I find that's a wonderful thing, to be able to look at work that you've never seen before.
Mhm.
Yeah. If you don't get lost in it, sometimes you start looking at it.
Down the rabbit hole of the
Down,
internet.
down the rabbit hole is right. Get lost in
Right.
space. You don't want to do that. Um,
So I'm just curious, after the next show, and when did you say, June or July?
June.
June. Okay. Do you then start work on the next show after that, or what's your normal process?
I don't really know, Craig, what I'll be doing after that. It usually is a lot of energy to put a show together, and then afterwards, get an idea of what to do next after you see it.
Right.
So, hmm.
Will the show in June be like what's behind you? That those sort
Yeah,
of
it'll be like that. I have about four. I don't know if I'll be able to include these because of the COVID and the situation at the gallery, but I have about 4 or 5 really large ones, maybe
how large is large? I'm just curious.
50 inches by 50 inches. I have
Okay.
some,
All right. So
and
is that a scale that you're comfortable working with?
well, when I start taking them to the truck, I think no. I think
It's the
maybe
honesty that I love.
smaller unless somebody else. Yeah. I like a big painting because it's kind of putting you in an environment, especially when there's several of them,
Hmm.
with a more of a feeling. Like I remember, I guess this picture or going and seeing, like I was traveling Mark Rothko's chapel where there's a whole lot of big
Hmm.
paintings. They're all gray and brown. And I thought, this is great. And just the feeling that you get when you're inside of a room that that's all there is. Um,
Well, I can't wait to see the next piece. Do you ever work real small too?
I worked really small when I was dropping paint, um,
Hmm.
using the dropping paint technique because would have like some little wood panels and I would put that on the little wood panels. But recently, I guess the smallest that I would work now is maybe like 9 by 13 or
Yeah.
12 by 12, but that's pretty small.
So when you see people and they respond to your work, obviously there's usually always I find a different response to the small work as to the large work. But I'd be curious to know, like, do people respond to your work like you expect them to, or what do you feel about the way people react to your work?
Well, I'm happy if they like it because I feel that then I was able to convey some kind of a feeling that I had when I made it.
Hmm.
But I don't know if that's true.
Do they ever surprise you by what they say about your work?
Well, I have one friend, and he always surprises me with what he says. His name is Perry, and he thinks everything looks like a map. And every time he's telling like what country it is or what state it is, and he does that to everybody's work. But it's
Oh,
true.
maybe you should start making maps just to play with
But
them.
no, he does that. He makes maps. He's got this long
Oh,
list of maps.
that's
That's
fun.
why he thinks about it all the time because he does it. But
So you're where your studio is now. It's in your house, correct?
yes, it's in the
And
house.
and that's you don't plan on moving your studio. You're
No,
not.
I like it there. I like it there because if it's bad weather, I can just go there and I can keep everything in one spot.
Yeah.
Recently I have some friends that have studios over at the mill. And I thought, would I want to do that? And I thought, no, but I like to visit them over there at their studio.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
there is something to be said to be able to roll out of bed into the studio, or vice versa, I think.
Yeah, but it's sort of psychological. You could roll out of bed and roll into the studio, but you could try to make yourself do that on some days. Yeah, that's what my aim is now.
Yeah.
Some days, like, yeah, well, if I wasn't going to talk with you today, and I'm really happy to speak with you, then I would have gone in the studio.
Is the piece behind you the latest piece that you've made?
No, there's a lot more after that.
Uh,
Uh, I thought this one looked good in the photograph, and I thought it
Is
has a
it
lot of energy.
is it titled? Do you title your works?
No, I do title them, and sometimes I just title them in a practical way so that I can remember what it was. This
Mm.
one doesn't have any title yet. Do you have any good idea?
I'll send you a list of my top
It's
names.
just as long as they're not the map name of a place.
Well, I hope that we can see this piece online somewhere because it's tough to see it through the video. So I
Yeah,
want to encourage you, if you haven't already, post it on Instagram or your website. I'm hoping that the people who watch this would be interested to see it in detail. So
okay, I've put it on my website, and I don't think I put it on Instagram yet. I'll put
okay,
it
well, I
on
look forward to it.
Instagram. Okay.
Well, I could continue to just talk to you all day, but I do want to thank you for coming today. It was
Well, thank you,
really
Rick.
great,
It's been great.
great talking with you. I want to encourage everybody out there, if you haven't already, please visit the website and the Instagram. And if you're on Facebook or anywhere else, ask questions of the artist. That's something a lot of people they seem to be hesitant to do. So reach out, ask questions, and see if you can't score an invitation to the show coming up in June or July, I think. So I want to thank you again, and a big thank you to all of our donors and those who came this evening. Thank you for tuning into Art Show, and I hope to see you again next week. Thank you and have a nice night.